Runyo! Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time it is there for you, and whether you are joining me here live in the heart space or whether you are catching up on this recording. We are going to be looking today at runes as personal guides or oracles. And there's a little subtitle for this session as well, because we're looking at quite some specifically ways that we can work with the runes as a soul medicine for magical people. This is something that has become increasingly important for me over time. I knew when I started working with the runes and I saw them across a crowded room, across a crowded bookshop, that they were offering some sort of medicine for my soul. And I wouldn't have used those terms back in that time because I was a young teenager at that point, so I didn't know that's what I was doing. But I knew that I was encountering something special, that I was encountering something that was... It wasn't just, oh, there's an interesting book. You know, I was into all sorts of books, murder mysteries, all sorts of things at that point. And I was interested in the sort of the magical section of the bookshop. You know, sort of peering over every now and then, but it hadn't ever really attracted my attention in the way that my runes did. And what I didn't realise is that runes were going to become my main soul medicine. So I wanted to bring this session in. It is, we're coming up to the full moon. It's later on in the full moon this week. And I wanted to bring this session in because I think that it's important for us to recognise how deeply we can work with the runes and how much they want to work with us, if we're willing to put the effort in. That they offer so much more than... I've got a particular question that I can ask on this day and I'll get an interesting response from the rune, and then I go away and I forget about it in the moment, or reassurance. You know, and some of us we do, you know, we go to our oracles. If you think about oracle, well, actually we'll talk about that in a moment, but we want reassurance sometimes, don't we? I think that this might be the right decision. Is it the right decision? And the runes don't tend to do that. You know, they'll tend to say, if you already know the answer, trust yourself and do it. You know, if you want to come to speak, almost as if you're speaking to an elder, to someone, to a being who has more, like, just access to a little bit more of what's going on around at the edges, about what energies are available, about what's playing under the surface. Then you go to the runes, and they might take you on a path that perhaps you weren't entirely ready for, because they are connecting with your potential, with your greatest potential. And they will offer the medicine that is going to help you to connect to that greatest potential. Hi Esther, it's lovely to see you too, and I can see a few of you popping in now live. It's lovely to see you. If you weren't here live at the very beginning, I got out my drinking horn, I did a bit of a wunyo. We're going to be working with the wunyo rune later as one of the 3 runes that has come forward for a little bit of a deep dive for us for this session. So as you're coming in, whether you're coming in live or whether you are watching the replay, I have a little question for you. So we are looking at runes and we're saying, okay, I might work with a rune as a soul guide. If you're here with me, you'll know that I've set up the heart space to be a space for magical people, for people who self-identify as magical. And when we think about that, we might think about, well, what does that mean for me? Because it means different things to different people. So the question that I've got for you is, what are the specific challenges you face as a magical person? So what are the specific challenges that you face as a magical person? Now, share them in the chat box, because these are the types of things that the runes are really, really powerful and potent at helping us to deal with. So I've got 3 examples. We'll see if any more come up during the course of this session. Either some might pop up if the rune said that, you know, we'll just talk about this, or if you've got some examples as well. So one of the things that I realised very early on, not very early on with my runes, but very early on when I discovered the concept of high sensitivity, which was something that I veered away from for a very long period of time, because I believed that anyone who was highly sensitive was never used as a positive word. You know, when I was a child, oh, you're so sensitive. It's always used in a slightly derogatory or a little bit of, you know, you need to grow a thicker skin type meaning. But when I embraced high sensitivity, I realized very quickly that there are a very large proportion of people who self-identify as being magical are also highly sensitive, which can be a wonderful, wonderful gift, to be able to have these incredibly tangible, powerful, like real memories, like very, very detailed memories, to have very, very vivid dreams, but also very, very vivid visions of what might be possible to the future, to be hypersensitive to people dynamics, to place, what's going on with place, to be very sensitive to toxins in the environment, which there are more of them around. All of these things, highly sensitive people experience those, and society needs highly sensitive people. I think it's Dr. Gabor Mate, who says that highly sensitive people would previously have been like the shamans of society. So I can see that. There's a ability to connect with a deeper set and a richer set of information that's out there in the world, whether we're talking about the physical world or whether we're talking about the energetic world or the emotional world or the spiritual world, than is the case for the majority of people. I think they say at the moment about 20 to 30% of people are thought to be highly sensitive, and it's on a spectrum as well. We don't all have the same set of indicators for what high sensitivity means. But high sensitivity is also very, very challenging, and it's particularly challenging when we live in a society that there's so many people around us all of the time. If you're tuned in all of the time and there's people around you all of the time, we live in very, very large groups now as humans. We don't live in little steads, sort of villages often. We live in big society. We have got cars and vehicles, we've got Bluetooth and various things like beaming through our house, we've got the Wi-Fi going all the time, the internet going all of the time. I know some people for whom it is incredibly difficult to even go to an event or a retreat, because they'll have to say, do you have Wi-Fi, because I won't be able to enjoy or relax or participate if you do, because it gives me a headache. Those are challenging things. Those are challenging things for us as highly sensitive people. And so we're going to look at that and the rune that's presented itself for us to explore as what soul medicine might a rune offer. Another one for magical people that I've found is unbelonging, a sense of unbelonging, of otherness, of I know that there are some things that I believe or that I practice that other people might find weird, And I quite like the word weird now, because I think about it as W-Y-R-D. But, it's a slight hesitancy, at best, to share your full self with others, because of that feeling that if you do, they'll go, oh, this person is different. And, do they belong with us? So it's this sense of unbelonging, which again can be positive. It can be that you are an edge walker, that you're able to disentangle yourself from the norms of the society in which you are, which is a very good quality to have if you're a shaman or a healer, or you don't want to be entangled in the story. Good morning, Maggie, lovely to see you. You don't want to be stuck in the story, because it's not always a good one, is it? There are bits in our society that we might want to change, possibly, and so being an edge walker who's able to see that and say, well, that's not really working very well, is useful. But it can also make us feel as if we are not welcome necessarily, and this is why I got my drinking horn out and said "Wunyo" at the beginning of the session. Now, this is something that I don't normally do during Magic in Mind sessions, but I do this with a lot of my programs, certainly in Awaken to the Runes and on our Mastery program. When we do our Wisdom Working Circles, we do a symbol rite and we use the Wunyo rune, and Wunyo means joy, kin, belonging, and it is something that magical people need. So Wunyo has presented itself as a little bit of a soul medicine guide for the challenge of unbelonging that magical people can experience. And the third challenge that came to my mind, and I was thinking, and there are so many, so do share. If you've just joined in, I'm asking you, what are the specific challenges you face as a magical person, as opposed to stuff that like everyone faces? What might the specific things be? So we've looked at high sensitivity, we've looked at unbelonging. For me, huge number of magical people feel a strong call to purpose. I think that's partially because there's a spirit connection. You know, it's a connection to spirit, and if spirit gets your attention and it goes, there's this thing that's wrong in the world, hello, you know, you're somebody who can fix that, you know, who can do something about it. It's like, oh, you know, you're listening is basically what they're saying. You know, spirit says that person's listening, they can hear us, so we're going to speak to them. So we can get this strong call to purpose, which is both a wonderful thing and can leave us feeling very wanting to offer service, you know, wanting to offer service out there in the world and feeling like, yes, I came here for a reason, there's a meaning. Now, the desire for a meaningful existence is also something that comes out very strongly for people in magical communities. But it can also be challenging, because life can be challenging anyway. It can be challenging enough just putting bread on the table and navigating. You know, if you're a highly sensitive person and you're feeling a little bit of a sense of, I'm not quite sure if I belong here, how much influence can I have in this space with this group, who, if they knew everything that I was thinking at this particular point, might disconnect from what it is that I'm trying to say out there in the world. You know, these things can be very, very challenging for us to navigate when they all come together. So do share with me, what challenges would you feel as a magical being? Another one that comes to my mind would be fear. If you've experienced something that you've then reported to, like, your go-to adult as a child, and you've gone, oh, I experienced that, and they say, well, that's not real. And you're like, oh, well, I experienced that. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Either it means that either they're wrong and then I don't feel safe because my go-to adult has now become wrong, or I'm wrong, in which case I don't trust myself. Who do I trust? And then you give your power away to somebody else. So that's another one. Can be fear of self or mistrust that can come through because you've been told at some point in your life that the things that you experience are not true. You know, are not true, because not everybody does. So that can be really hard as well. That adds to unbelonging, and it is certainly a symptom of symptom, is there a better word than symptom? Let's see if we can find a better word, because it makes it sound like you're sick. You're not. An attribute, let's say, an attribute of high sensitivity, that you're just more tuned into things that other people can't sense one way or the other. And it can make the call to purpose really, really hard as well, because if you've lost trust in other people and you've lost trust in yourself, or one or the other, that can be very difficult to then say, I've been called to make my difference out there in the world. I've been very quiet today. For those who are joining me on the recording, my live people are being very quiet today. Esther, you said, being highly sensitive is a challenge in this society. Energy management can be too. Yes, I absolutely agree. There are just things like the complexity of the foods that are available. You know, it's getting like raw food can be very, very challenging. And if your system doesn't like everything that's in there, all of the additives and stuff like that, you know, that's really, really difficult, isn't it? And then because we move so fast, we live so fast, we're so busy all of the time, we don't have the time to dedicate to making food that might be good for us. So many different ways in which it is far harder to live as a highly sensitive person now than it used to be. You're saying, yeah, fear is a big one too. Yes, I think fear is a very, very big one. And it's one that I'm working with a lot more at the moment. It's one of the reasons why I created the Amplify program, the Amplify Your Magic program, was to look at all of these challenges really of what it means to be a magical person. But it might not be that we have, some people refer to like the witch wound, a very specific, inherited or ancestral fear based on real historical experiences of people who were other, and whether they were actually magical or not, because a lot of them weren't, but they were put into this bucket of wrongness and treated horrifically. That is one, and some people will feel that very strongly. They'll say, yes, I absolutely, I'm working on witch wounding, through to just a hesitancy, a hesitancy to say the thing that's top of mind. So that self-censoring can come through an awful lot, and that can make it quite hard to live in this world, self-censoring in that way all the time. It may say it's hard, especially when you can't make your behaviour more palatable for everyone else. So you develop a shame around things you can't control. Yes, now this is a double whammy for magical people, because in order to be yourself, you risk making other people uncomfortable. You risk them experiencing some discomfort. And the thing is that might actually be no bad thing. You know, it might be, wow, you know, they can expand their minds in this moment in time. It might be a wonderful thing. And there are plenty of people out there in the world who make other people uncomfortable and live not worrying about it at all. But if you're highly sensitive and you feel like you don't belong and you've got a call to purpose that doesn't fit with everybody else, every time you make somebody uncomfortable, you feel it as if it's your own feelings. That's really hard, isn't it? Oh, it's like instant feedback. You might have said something that is an incredibly powerful, maybe even a healing piece, because offering healing, if you're a healer, offering healing to other people, healing is not an easy journey of skipping through fields of bunnies. I wish it was. Wouldn't that be nice? Like little fluffy bunnies and chocolate. I'm sure that's just me. You know, whatever it is. It's not that, is it? We would love it to be that. We would love it to be a comfortable, beautiful, serene experience. And some healing can be like that. But in my view, probably not the deepest healing. We can have that. That can be restorative healing if we've just been through a really, really challenging healing journey. We've learned something new about ourselves, or we've had, you know, something that we've been holding, or we've been holding for our ancestors for ages, and it's been like ripped out as we've challenged it. Then we might have a period of time when we need to experience very gentle, restorative fields of bunnies healing. But it can, as yes, you're absolutely right, Hester, it can be brutal. It can be brutal. We may have to face things inside ourselves that we do not want to face. We may have to walk in and go and see that shadow, and that can be hard. And that is another part, actually, of thank you for this, because this is another part of what makes being a magical person challenging, and why we need that soul medicine. It's because we're not afraid to walk into the dark. You know, we're not afraid to take ourselves on. We're not afraid to go and work with the shadow. We're not afraid to go and deal with the thing that somebody else might walk along quite blithely with and say, actually, no, I'm just going to leave the lid on that. Just leave the lid on that. That doesn't look very nice. That looks a bit icky. I'll just leave that in the corner somewhere. No. Why is it about magical people that can't do that? They're like, oh no, I must go and deal with that. That doesn't look very good. Conscientiousness. High levels of conscientiousness in going and dealing with the stuff, of taking ourselves on, and of saying, actually, yes, it's nice and shiny and bright and light over here, but over there needs my attention just as much, you know? So that's another one. Taking ourselves on, or taking the world on. I'm just going to write that down. I think that's two things, isn't it? We can take ourselves on in terms of our healing journeys. We can also take the world on a bit, you know. We don't ignore the stuff that we go, no, that's not acceptable. No, bullying in my workplace is not acceptable. I will not stand for it. I will become the centre of attention, and then my highly sensitive senses will go, ah! As everyone suddenly looks at me, and all of the uncomfortable feelings that they've had that they haven't done, and the shame that people have felt because they haven't said anything, all comes washing over us, and we think, oh, why did I do that? Why did I do that? No, it's really hard. Pamela says, morning. I find sensitivity may be challenging to communicate about in the moment. Yes, this is another one, isn't it? There is strategies for dealing with overwhelm that are not accepted in society. So let's say, it's a little bit like if we have a response to something, it's a passionate response to something that is beautiful or shocking or, you know, anything. We have an emotional response to something and we show it. No, which is one of the ways in which we can start to pass through it. You know, it's we were talking about this, weren't we, with Freya's tears, and we were saying how when you cry, some of the excess proteins, the proteins are released. That's one of the ways in which we relieve emotions in the moment. But if you're not allowed to cry, or you're not allowed to say, I'm just processing for a moment. If you, let's say you're introverted, which is, I'm not sure. I have not done any. That'd be a good survey to do, wouldn't it? Are magical people more introverted or more extroverted? I don't know. I'm an introvert. You might not believe that because obviously I'm talking to you right now, but I am. But yes, that need to process and step back can also be part of what it means to be highly sensitive as well. That we need a little bit of time to be able to say, okay, what's this and what's that, and I'm feeling this, and that's somebody else's, and this is mine, and la 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 la. And by the time the conversation moves so fast, because people tend to work on the surface, don't they? Tend to work on the surface and say, oh, let's what's this problem? It's that. Then we'll deal with it. You know, not what's this problem? Oh, it's this multi-layered, multi-dimensional thing that could be tackled from a number of different ways. It has an emotional component. No, we want the easy answer. Society tends to want the easy answer, doesn't it? Magical people don't tend to be afraid of the difficult answers. They quite like the difficult answers, let's be honest. How many people here like the complicated or difficult answers? No. I like the complicated or difficult answers, I'm not going to lie. It makes life more interesting, doesn't it? And Esther says, when introverts are comfortable, they open up. And this is true. There is still a, if you go on the Myers-Briggs or the Jungian scale, there is still, there is a processing difference. Introverts will process then respond, process and then respond, whereas extroverts process by responding. That's one of the differences. But yes, there is also an opening up, because there is a being able to trust in the environment that you can say, I'm not ready to reply yet, I'm still thinking, Because, all the answers are complicated when we really think about them. Yes, glad that I'm not the only complicated person here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the 3 runes that have offered themselves to me for today, and then we'll see how much time we've got out, and any other topics that come up for you. So anything else that comes up for you through this session, you go, oh, yeah, that's another challenge that we might experience as magical people. I think Pamela made an interesting point there about being able to communicate an experience that isn't universal, and maybe we might call on Ansus a little bit for that one, but who knows. This is one of the things that's interesting when we work with runes, is that Maggie could ask one question and Pamela could ask another, Esther could ask another, and you could be asking the same question but get different runes as your answers, because there might be a rune that you go, like, generically speaking, communication, Ansus would be a good rune to work with. But personally speaking, in terms of the particular challenge that I am facing and the way in which I'm facing it, might mean that a different rune would come forward. So this is why I asked for 3 runes to come, and I chose them before I had the topics. They were just we are going to come. So the 3 runes that have come, we've already touched on Wunyo, haven't we? So let's do Wunyo, because I think Wunyo is an important one. I was actually discussing Wunyo in the mastery group last week. We had a really interesting conversation about the Wunyo rune. I'm just looking for it so I can share its shape with you. Here we go. So this is one of the runes that when you look at it and you say, this doesn't look like a W or a V. What is going on here? So this is a sort of old form. It looks more like a P. It's not a P. The P rune looks nothing like a P either. So this is the V sound. So it's either a W or a V, but it's sort of blended so that you get this soft sound. Wunyo. W-U-N-J-O, because the J is pronounced Y. And it is the rune of joy and belonging. It's the 8th rune. It comes at the very end of the final 8, and I did notice there are 3 patron runes for this session, very nicely offered one from each of the 8s, which I thought was nice of them to do that. So this is the last rune in the first 8, and these are very primal energies. Very primal energies. They often can feel like the energies of childhood in some way. They're very formative energies. And Wunyo comes at the end, and it offers ecstasy and happiness and joy. It's often referred to as the joy rune, and there is a sense of kin and family and belonging attached to it, which I've always found very interesting, given that the large number of people who I work with will say that they may well not have experienced a sense of belonging in the traditional spaces where they were told that they should, or they might have experienced a partial belonging. It might have been like, yes, as long as I fit into the mould, and because I'm highly sensitive, I'm very good at fitting into the mould, then I can feel safe and I can feel secure. But I'm very aware of this part of me over here that people around me feel a little bit dangerous or risky, because they don't understand it, or perhaps because that's been passed down to them. They were also maybe imaginative and sensitive and all of the things, and they were told, no, it's not safe to be that. You have to be practical and rational and evidence-based and all of those things, and then they pass that down. So we get this generational repression of parts of the self that create spaces where we think that those parts of us aren't welcome. And so Wunyo can raise those feelings when we first reach for Wunyo. We can say, I don't remember a time when I ever felt that I truly belonged in a group or in a space. We might say, I don't remember ever experiencing true ecstasy or true joy. And then Wunyo, as we work with it, can lead us on that path of exploration and self-discovery. And it can say, what's the word I'm looking for? Look back, look back. Sometimes we have to reach really far back into our pasts to find those moments of childish joy. I don't know if you can hear, my microphone might be blocking them out, it might not, but my 2 children, they're in half term at the moment, and they're doing a fabulous job of self-entertaining, but they're doing so loudly with great Wunyo joy at this point. So I don't know if you can hear them. I can hear them. But they're fine, they're absolutely fine. And just listening to them makes me go, Wunyo! Yay! No. So Wunyo can offer this, a little bit of, what don't I have at this point? And this is what we were discussing in the mastery groups, because we were saying, well, Wunyo is interesting because when you receive it, its energy it can feel very light, it can feel golden, it can feel the sort of opening of the heart chakra comes out really strongly. The heaviness in the body can go. It's very useful for pain relief. I used to use it a lot for pain relief when I had arthritis. So eases the weight on the joints. And we were saying, well, it feels like a very simple rune, like more simple than some of the other runes. So it's not like Hargalaz or Thurisas, and it's simple, it's joy, yay. And then we were discussing this. We were going partway through the group, and we've been doing a sort of deep dive into some of the runes. And I said, I think the thing for me about Wunyo is that it's the very fact that it represents this simplicity of joy and belonging, and this energy that we somehow instinctively know. Now, particularly if you've been working for a long period of time on your magical path, that even if you don't have it in the present moment, you have this idea of what joy might feel like. And it is different to the joy that, or the success, let's say, that society presents to us and says, if you have this, if you possess this, then you will be happy. Wunyo sets itself very much apart from that and says, no, it's really nothing to do with possessions at all. It is to do with connection. It is to do with connection and meaning and presence in the moment, being able to be absolutely present in the moment, which is, I think, why some of us feel like, oh no, the belonging piece can be challenging, because we can feel like, well, I wasn't fully present in the moment because I was censoring this part of myself. And so the challenge that Wunyo brings for us is the absence of Wunyo, when it's not there, and when we know this wasn't what I'd wanted. This wasn't what I wanted. This wasn't we know when you get past a prize. Let me see. Yeah, let's imagine that you've it's a school team, whatever it is, and now you've progressed through the leagues and been working really, really hard and doing all that stuff, and then it gets to the final, and one member of the team suggested that there will be an easy way to cheat in the final. It's totally, no one would know about it, no one would ever know about it, and it would guarantee the win. And that one person suggested it, but it took the whole team to do it, and the whole team does, in one way or the other. Maybe they didn't do anything, maybe they just didn't have to say anything, but they do it, and they win, and that's great. And then they're all standing there with the trophy. Yay, we won. But they're not really thinking, yay, we won. Because they're all going, oh, but we could have won. What if we had won and we hadn't done that bit? What if we had done it and we hadn't cheated? And so there's everything on the surface that says that there's success, but there's that knowing underneath that taints that moment of joy, And it's that's the shadow of Wunyo. So Wunyo actually does have quite a long shadow when we're not being true to ourselves, when we're not standing in integrity with ourselves, when we're not able to be fully open and fully present, when we hide. All of these things come through with Wunyo. And so this is why doing the symbol right, where we use the drinking horn and we shout Wunyo, is important. Because when we do that, we are offering our presence, our witnessing, our full acceptance to the other person and what they have said in the moment, with our Wunyo. Yay, Wunyo! And we are celebrating each other. and celebrating each other's truths and each other's vulnerabilities, and creating a space of belonging in that moment, which magical people are able to do, because magical people know how to create magical circles and to say, in this moment we all totally belong together, and we also know how to separate from each other to allow each other freedom as well. And Wunyo represents freedom too, and it is a recognition that we don't always have to be together all of the time, belonging all of the time, believing all of the same things all of the time, being sort of homogenous. It is that dance, it's the dance of life that we all do with each other. And so when we work with Wunyo, we are receiving deep soul medicine that helps us with wounds of unbelonging, with wounds of unhappiness, with wounds of not being good enough, with wounds of connection, not being able to connect with ourselves fully or with other people fully. It offers us that. So Esther, you're saying some joyful events can be linked to sadness and grief as a challenge. We're looking back at certain events from childhood. Yes, and that can be challenging as well, can't it? And this is interesting for Wunyo because Wunyo is early on in the Elder Futhok. It's at the end of that period of time where we've got the foundations being laid. There is, to a certain extent, an innocence that comes with Wunyo that we then move through when we move into Hargalaz, which lots of people go, oh, Hargalaz. Hargalaz is the next rune, and Hargalaz is the disruptor rune. No, so if you were to have the perfect idyllic childhood, which obviously no one does, but some people have much less of than others, then those Wunyo moments can be quite challenging to find. And they can be tinged with sadness as we get older and we recognise what we would have wished for ourselves. Maybe we become parents ourselves, or we see other children, other families that had things that we didn't, and we go, oh, no? What's going on with that? Or we had those wonderful moments, we had those brilliant, fabulous moments, and then we go, oh, and I've lost them. That can be tough in itself. They're gone. Those can be challenging as well. And so Wunyo comes at that point, sort of at that peak moment where you're in joy, in the moment, fully present in the moment, before the loss comes in, or that sense that, and yet, it comes in that moment. But it definitely offers healing for those moments as well. We can do, if you think about grief and loss, we can work to really celebrate those things that we're grieving for, and recognise they're still with me. There's an embrace. Do I want to go into that? I might come back to this actually, Esther, because I think it's important, but it might be that Bacano needs to offer us some a little bit more, because I think the three runes that came together offered themselves for a particular purpose, because they all, to a certain extent, help us to deal with the very deep wounds that are complicated, as we've been talking about. It's not always easy and straightforward. So let's look at high sensitivity. So the rune that came forward for high sensitivity was Bacano, which was like, oh, interesting. So, you imagine that you invite your runes and you say, I'm working with the challenge of high sensitivity. I want to embrace it more fully, but I'm finding it a little bit hard, a little bit tough going. And you get the Bacano rune. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Now, what the Bacano rune brought for me as I was feeling into it was the sense of, this is a big topic, so bear with me. There is, to a certain extent, it's the loss of the divine feminine. So Bacano represents the birch tree, the youthfulness, and the phases of the divine feminine, from the maiden mother crone, if you like that model. You can use that model as well. So it's sort of changing and flowing. It's the springtime and the deep winter, the weathering underneath, the darkness, the composting. All of those things come in with the Bacano. It's like the womb and the tomb is another thing that's referred to, isn't it? If you've ever heard that phrase, it contains, you'll notice that it's got like two mounds. I always think of these as being a bit like ancestral mounds, and there's two of them. It's not just one, it's not a singular, because the divine feminine works in the plural. It always works in the plural with group. And you can see how it's sort of quite like that, it's like a building on of Wunyo in some ways, but it's a deeper understanding and a recognition that sometimes we might need the embrace of the divine feminine to help us to move through the grief that comes either when we've had a wonderful, fabulous Runyo experience and then it's gone, it's over, or we thought that we did and then we realised that it wasn't quite what we expected, or what, all of those things. The Bacana can come in and support us with healing of the past. Runyo tends to be in the present. It's experienced in the present. Bacana can help us with that healing of the past. But what it also helps with is an embodied experience of life. Bizarrely, I was thinking, I want a little bit more support with Bacana, and then I had the radio on in the background, but I sort of tuned out of it, and I tuned back in. I don't know what the program was because it was literally just before this. And a woman was speaking. She was talking about, they were talking about different philosophical schools of thought. And this particular lady was saying that some of the philosophical schools of thought that were brought in the spiritual schools of thought that were brought in from the Roman times and Greek times, classical times, were very masculinized and very mind over body. And she was saying how one of the things that we need to be able to reclaim is our relationship with food and our relationship with pleasure and our ability to tune in with our bodies to what's happening in our environments. And I realised that high sensitivity is so much about that. It's almost this wave of recognition of what it means to be highly sensitive has come through in the past, I want to say 20 years. And I often think about highly sensitive people as being like the canary in the coal mine who recognises first that we're on dangerous territory. So there are toxins in the environment, or the people dynamics in this group are really bad, or we're in a sick building right now. It's all going to go, horribly wrong. I'm sensing that there's something about this project that's not quite right. It's off. It's being able to listen to our intuition and our instincts. That's a lot of what high sensitivity is. And Bacano encourages us to do that through those moments where we go and we lie on the earth, on the green moss with no shoes on. We feel ourselves. That's we know now that there is an earthing that's taking place, an actual sort of earthing of our energies. We've known that. Spiritual schools of thought have known that for millennia. But science is starting to catch up now with these things. So there is a reintegration, a reclamation of the body as a powerful and essential part of or I think about it as being part of the soul. Often, for me, it's one of the reasons that I love Northern Soul Law, is because it embraces the body and the energy body as being part of the self as well. That's an evolving being that receives layers and receives the body and becomes the body. It's not like a piece of clothing that we put on. It is part of the self, and it has knowledge and wisdom to offer to us, which highly sensitive people almost can't turn off. And unfortunately for them, but I think fortunately for the world, when you're like, nope, this is uncomfortable, nope, and you keep going on it for long enough, things change, don't they? Things change. I know that as somebody who, I'm not celiac. I do have people in my family who are celiac, but I'm not celiac. I'm gluten intolerant, and I know how much easier it is now to eat in a way that is going to maintain my body than it used to be. And that is because more and more people are recognising that things that were considered to be like ailments in the past, so sensitive, I'm making such a fuss, is nonsense. It's total nonsense, and that human beings, we have lost, I'm going to get off my soapbox in a minute, we have lost our knowledge about the environments that we need to thrive in by disconnecting ourselves from them. Now we're going, oops, that might have been a bit of a mistake. What are we going to do to fix that? So that's, I think, one of the reasons why high sensitivity comes in. But it's almost recognising the power and the divinity of those gifts through the Bacano rune, which represents the divine feminine and represents this embodied experience of life. So we can work with the Bacano rune, you can work with the rune, you can work with its power song, you can work by honouring its nature, by really gardening, getting your hands into the earth. All of those things help us to recognise and to ground and embed high sensitivity. I think we can sometimes see high sensitivity as being a sort of bit up here, like, whereas actually it's a very, very physical, visceral experience, isn't it? You know. Let's look at our third of the magical challenges that I brought up, which was the call to purpose. What does it feel like when we have this strong call to purpose, and we might not even be sure what it is? We just know I'm supposed to be doing something with my life that I'm not currently doing. You know, my job or my service in my community, or whatever it is that I'm doing in my life isn't fulfilling the thing that I sort of feel as if it should be. And the rune that came forward to offer itself for exploration, to offer a bit of soul medicine for us on that front, is the Algiz rune. Let me find the Algiz rune for you. So again, Algiz rune doesn't look anything like the letter that it represents, which is normally taken to represent the Z sound. Here we go. It's hiding from me. It's a very ethereal rune, the Algiz rune. Here we go. So a lot of you might recognise this. This is often like the first symbol when people see the runes and they go, oh yeah, I recognise that. Is that the peace symbol? And Algiz means sort of divine protection, divine guidance, our connection. It's like the person reaching up to connect with the divine. I quite like it when we turn it upside down as well. It's connecting to reach with the divine below, if you remember our Bacano rune piece as well. But it is a drawing down into the lived experience and into the body. You can also, quite like this one, sometimes seen as representing a bird's footprint, because Algiz is, when it's Algiz, it's thought to stem back to the meaning of swan. And when it's Elaz, which is one of the other linguistic origins of the rune, it can be thought to meant elk or elk sedge. So it might be like the horns of the elk, but it can also be the footprint there of a bird, which I quite like. There's something about going out into nature and seeing those footprints of a bird that's been there before, this sort of being that can fly, that can be out there in the world. And then remembering that they come down to the earth as well, and that we're there with them. And we've, of course, in the northern tradition, we have the raven, we have the swans that dwell at the Well of Weird, we have swan maidens who come and are often seen as being like muses or Valkyrie. And Esther says it reminds me of the 3 pathways. Are you thinking about the 3 pathways that we did with Chasing the Rainbow, Esther? Let me know. It does remind me of that, but I don't want to assume that's what you mean. And what I love about Algiz is that it combines the fierceness of the Valkyrie, who will come and will say, this is what you're supposed to be doing, come on! Like the rallying call of the Valkyrie, with the gentleness and the love of the Disir. No, the crossroads, I see it was what you meant. Okay, yeah. You can have a 3-way crossroads, can't you, as well? The crossroads at life. And we can think about it as being this embrace, the embrace of the divine feminine. You can see how these 3 runes, why they decided to come together, because they were like, yeah, we can really support. So really support and we can come together. That's why I love runes, because they can work together in collective, can't they? And in this case, the arms can be seen as a Disir, for example, of a member of your ancestral circle coming in, standing behind you, and then folding their arms around you and holding you in that moment and offering protection. So we can work with the Algiz rune if we're highly sensitive to create sort of a cloak around us. So you can work with the Bacano rune in the same way, particularly if you wear a natural object, maybe like moss agate or wood, or anything, any crystals or objects that can absorb energy for you and then send it back down into the earth and compost it, can be useful for the Bacano rune. But the Algiz rune works more as a sort of cocoon or a protection in that moment. So it simultaneously calls us forward and says, this is the way forward. Brings in a little bit of the presence of the Nornir as well, and we've got the 3 ways there with Urd, Fathandi and Skuld too. And that sense of them offering us a path forwards. And so if you're looking for purpose, if you're saying, I'm ready for my next calling, I'm ready for the next purpose, I want to be guided towards that, then you can wear an Algiz rune, or you can draw it on the soles of your feet. Can be quite nice, and say, let my feet be guided through the course of this day. And I think that this rune helps us particularly because it says, I recognise that you are ready to step up and you're ready to face the shadow and to take yourself on. All of the things that we were just talking about that magical people are comfortable with doing, and we recognise that maybe as another, as one of the challenges as well. Not just that call to purpose, but that call to do something that might be a bit hard and a bit complicated. It allows for that, but it also provides the protection and the love and the nurturing that we need as it does that. And that's important to me. You know, we talked about the Bacano rune and bringing in the divine feminine a little bit more. Well, a lot more. But it shouldn't be at the expense of the divine masculine. It should be a partnership, the restoration of partnership. And I personally think that that's what's, you know, what the masculine wants is that rebalancing. It wants the an equal partnership, because that's where, you know, that's where magic happens, rather than the squashing down of one part and the raising up of the other that can't do all of the stuff on its own anyway. S is the Cygnus constellation, sits as the divine bird at the top of the Milky Way. Oh yeah, because you've been looking at northern constellations, haven't you? Which I'm going, oh, so pretty, so shiny. That'll be a project for later. But yes, so it sits as the divine bird at the top of the Milky Way. It's also worth bearing in mind as well that on the world tree we have the swans are down at the bottom with the Well of Weird. I'm going to say that as a caveat, because also the Well of Weird is sometimes said as being in Asgard, as we know. So, you know, it's up there. But also the eagle and the hawk. So this energy of the bird sitting up there at the top. I love that. The divine bird at the top of the Milky Way. I'll have to sit with that. Suki says, upside down reminds me of a broom sweeping a clear path for us. Oh, what a lovely image, Suki. I really like that. And I can see that, yes. And there's something, you know, intentional, isn't there? It's like sweeping away the path. Yes, I'm sweeping out, I'm clearing out. And the broom is a tool to do that the algae rune offers. So I really like that. And Carol says, you can find so many of these footprints down the beach. I suspect mainly the seagull. They scatter themselves about and some enter the ocean. And that's lovely as well, isn't it? That reminds me of those liminal spaces. And you know, we were talking at the beginning about being a magical person and feeling like you exist like on the edge, that sense of unbelonging we mentioned, didn't we? And it's almost a claiming of the spaces of unbelonging as the spaces of belonging. I belong in the liminal. I belong at the edge. And the Alga's rune saying, yeah, it's fun here. Come over here. The meditations that I most enjoy with the Alga's rune are the ones where we are following that sort of ethereal, yet so protective spirit. Sometimes it's like the will-o'-the-wisp or the fae. A little bit, sometimes a little bit mischievous. But if you've done your work with them, if you've observed, if you've cared for nature, if you've cared for your planet and the earth, as really we should be as human beings, then it's saying the spirits of the earth will come out and they will protect you in return. And I love that idea with and there's something ephemeral, isn't there? You know, the footprint will be there and then the sea will wash it away. But did it make it any less powerful? No. No. So yes, my invitation to you as we come up towards this full moon is to feel into for yourself, what are the challenges that I experience as a magical person? What are the really specific challenges? I'm going to do a little recap for you, just a reminder. So we've talked about high sensitivity, we've talked about unbelonging, we've talked about a call to purpose, we've talked about that willingness to take ourselves on. We can't sort of leave something alone if we've seen it. We've talked about the challenges around communicating an experience that isn't universal. You're sharing those as well, but do keep them coming. Do share in the half space or in this thread what else is coming up for you, and you can either allow a rune to come and speak to you. We were talking about runes as personal oracles, and like the origins of the word oracle, it's a Latin word, but it means speak. So I quite like it because it talks about speech, and in the northern tradition they talk about runamal, which means rune speech. So you can ask the runes to speak to us and for one of them to offer themselves, or you can do a reading as well. You can say, I'm finding this particularly challenging right now. You know, which rune can come and work with me and offer its soul medicine to me. And yeah, let me know. So I hope that this session has been helpful for you, and that you are looking forward to the full moon coming at the end of this week. I will be back again for our waning moon release meditation session before we open for a new lunar month of working. But it has been lovely to see all of you, whether you have been here live with me, in which case thank you very much. It's been lovely to see all of you, or whether you are catching the replay, in which case please do put hashtag replay so that I know you are there and can give you a wave. It's been lovely to see everyone. Take care.